Today on 427 Motorsports, we're going to do a little follow-up video to Conor's video on should you daily drive a classic Mercedes. So he made that video, when was that? A year ago? 2 years ago?
Must have been about, 1 year ago, because we had the 190.
A year ago. And I thought, well, screw you, pal. I've been daily driving Volkswagens for a hell of a lot longer than you've been daily driving Mercs. So maybe I should talk about should you daily drive a classic Volkswagen. No, that's not true. Hear me out. But for some of it, it's true. But anyway, let's get started and we'll tell you the ins and outs of classic Volkswagen daily drivership. So this one will follow a bit of a different format because obviously unlike Conor's video, there's two of us here. If you haven't checked that video out already, wait till the end of this one and then go and check it out because it's just bad crack if you then leave and then forget about us. Because I've heard about my brother doing that, watching the video, and then we talked about something and he was like, oh, I must go watch that. So then he did and he forgot to go back and watch the rest of our video. So those stats went out the window.
Screw us.
Yeah, screw us, am I right? He probably was watching monster trucks or something instead. So whatever, I guess. So yeah, if you haven't already, check that video out as well after this one. But yes, the difference in format is, well, obviously there's two of us. We thought for these talking videos it'd be a bit more crack if there's the two of us having a bit of the old banter when we're trying to talk about this stuff. So yeah, Conor is going to fire me some questions and I'm going to try my best to answer them.
I'm going to throw you a curveball to begin with. Why wouldn't you daily drive a classic Volkswagen? Are we talking about Golfs here, or are we going back to Beetles?
Yeah, I was going to say, so maybe a bit of history on myself here before I get into this. Some people are all like, sure, what do you know? You're like 12. I've been daily driving classic Volkswagens since when they weren't even classic.
You never touched any.
Yeah, we actually had somebody say, we're not even real mechanics and all we touch is our own dicks. That may be true, but we're mechanics as well. Yeah, so I have had a Mk2 Golf since I was 15 years old. It was my first ever experience with working on cars, and I have had Mk2 Golfs ever since. I think the amount of Mk2 Golfs I've had is in the double digits.
I think you've always had one on the road.
Yeah, I've pretty much always had, or for a very, very short space of time, didn't have a Mk2 Golf on the road in some form.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, I have daily driven Mk2 Golfs for the last 8 years. I have to have put on at least 100,000 miles on various Mk2s in that time, easily. But bearing in mind, I've also driven Mercs and Subarus and what else have I? Mazdas. So I have a mixture of different cars, so I can speak from experience of many different classic cars, but predominantly it's been Volkswagens.
So we're going to just talk about Golfs then to answer the question that I asked you.
To come back to the question, to loop back around, this is predominantly about Golfs. Now, I've spent a bit of time in Beetles and I've owned some Jettas, but I haven't owned Passats. I haven't owned, say, split screen camper vans. I did own a 2014 Polo, so that's kind of my benchmark for comparing it to driving something modern. But this will be mostly my experience of Golfs. I'll dive into the others because, you know, Volkswagens are, if I had a tattoo, it'd probably be a Volkswagen logo somewhere. So I know my shit about Volkswagens, so I can speak for them, but I haven't necessarily owned all of them. Now back to the original question, which is why wouldn't you daily drive a classic Volkswagen? It depends on the classic Volkswagen you currently have. If you have already done lots of work to it, or you're sensible and bought a good one in the first place, which I don't, then I honestly couldn't think of a reason why you wouldn't. Now, because of the age of these classic Volkswagens, I'm talking 80s would be my area of expertise. Early 90s, yes, technically the Mk2 Golf was still made until, but production year and design was the 80s. So you are missing a lot of creature comforts if you're coming from a modern car into a classic car, and it is very hard to adjust. Some people really
What's
like...
that like? I can't relate, having had an 80s Mercedes.
Yeah, you went from modern day peasant with your fate to old money rich. But yeah, so the Golfs, unless you're spending lots of money getting all these optional extras, as opposed to just fitting them yourself, which is what I've been doing to make them a bit more refined, you're going to pay serious money to get all of these optional extras. But if you were daily driving it instead of anything else and it was your one car, you'd probably spend the extra money. Like, I think it's a lot of money, but 2-3 grand.
Yeah, what is it? What are you spending a year?
Yearly costs. Honestly, because mine are in a continual state of repair, aren't all classics really, like, well, the best way to put it really is probably how much did I spend at the last MOT?
Yeah, go on.
Is that a fair way to go?
Yeah.
So the blue Golf I'm driving at the minute was off the road for 5 years, purely because I just didn't get around to driving it again. It was no reason for it. I just couldn't be bothered putting it through an MOT at the time. And to put it onto the road, I spent a grand total, not including tyres, because you're going to have to spend that on any car, whether it's new or old. So that doesn't really count. I think it cost me roughly about £120 to put that car back onto the road, and that was spending more than I really needed to. Mm-hmm. So to do that, I put on wishbones, track rods, track rod ends. I replaced all 4 brake hoses. I replaced some of the brake lines. But the key thing I'm saying there is I replaced, not I paid somebody else to replace.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of labour if you got down that
but
road.
I didn't have to do 90% of it. I did it because, well, I care about it and I want it to last more than just this year. Mm-hmm. So if I actually only did the essentials that the car needed for MOT, I probably would have only spent about £40.
Yeah.
One of them is the fear. Now...
The fail.
Once the fear hits you. Oh, that fella's got the fear now. With a classic car, maybe if it's just pride in your own car, if you have a modern car, maybe you have the same thing. But I do know that people who have a classic car are much more protective of their classic. Mm. So they are much more mindful of where they park it.
Yes.
And making sure there's no scrapes, no dings. These 80s hatchbacks, hot hatches specifically, but you know, all of them really as a result are now going up in value. There is the fear that somebody quite wants to have your pride and joy without paying for it, and someday you're going to come out of the shop and it's going to be gone. Now, without doing your own kind of like safety measures, which I'm not going to go into because I don't want anybody stealing my car.
Yeah.
Without adding your own little safety measures to make it a bit harder to steal, they are desirable cars, and you're always going to have that little fear in the back of your mind that somebody's going to take that, and it's not going to be there when I come out of Lidl. So I don't know why Lidl specifically. I just assume Lidl would attract people.
German car, German supermarket.
Yep, let's go with that.
Yeah.
That's much nicer than what I was actually going to say. But yeah, you're always kind of going to be afraid somebody's going to want a piece of that, and you're probably not going to get that with a Corsa C parked in the car park.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, but if you have your pride and joy polished to the last Mk2 Golf sitting in the car park, you are going to be a bit afraid. That's why I daily drive the blue one, because it's 4 different colours of blue. We painted it with a brush. If somebody dings it or scrapes it, I laugh. I don't cry. Whereas if somebody scraped the 190 or something like that, there would be tears. So just be afraid that, you know, you have to be willing to repair scrapes and scratches and dings and dents. You might be very lucky and not get any. Yeah. But just be aware it's going to happen, and try not to let it annoy you too much when it does, because it will happen. It's not an if, it's a when. And you can park at the far side of the car park if you want and hope that nobody's going to touch it, but you're still
they always park next to it.
They always park next to it because they want to have a look at it.
Yeah.
Another bad point is don't go anywhere in a hurry without upgrading it. You know, this is a 40-year-old car, 40-year-old car. Other people will pull out in front of you. They won't even think. And you have to jam on the brakes and hope you're going to get stopped in time. Unless, of course, you upgrade your brakes and all that, which Yeah, to be honest, it's just a sensible thing to do. But you know, it can't be assumed that everybody who drives these is going to upgrade the brakes. But you get people who just think you are a modern car and will pull out in front of you, and you have to jam on the brakes and hope you get stopped. Or you'll have people pulling out in front of you and then going really slow, and you can't actually get, unless you're driving a GTI or something like that.
Can't get past it.
It's really hard to overtake sometimes.
Yeah, well, especially with yours in original 60 horsepower. Not a chance.
Who told you it's original?
Well, when they were.
Yeah, when they were original.
When they were 60 horsepower, yeah.
Yeah, mind you, 90 is not that much either. But yeah, another big concern. Now, you're not going to have this with the Mercs. Well, you might to a degree, but not as much as I have this concern. Safety. There is none. Like, you are the crumple zone in a Mk2 Golf. I've seen crash tests of them. They're not pretty. I've seen posts on owners clubs and things of people saying like, oh, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have walked away. And it's like, yeah, if you're in something more modern, you'd have not only walked away, but you'd have been like going, God, that wasn't too bad, was it? You'd have been went out and bought another car. If you have a proper crash in a Mk2 Golf, you're coming away with injuries. Like, maybe not necessarily fatal, but you're having injuries.
Yeah.
It's the way of it. Like, I have said from day one when I started driving them, like, I don't really care, because if I have an accident, I'll not be around to worry about it. That's kind of the mentality you have to have. It's just, safety doesn't really exist in one, so just
drive defensively.
Yeah. They're not a car you ever see people driving like assholes in anymore.
Are they not?
But I don't. I did. Now, don't get me wrong. When I was in the GTI, I did. But then I was also a teenager. What do you expect?
Yeah.
But nowadays, at the ripe old age of 24, 25 in 2 days, hint.
Happy birthday.
By the time this goes up, probably. But yeah, already at this age, I'm like, go slow and just take it easy, because if something happens, you're only one slip away from something happening. Having seen too many people driving ear up to the phone or checking all the touchscreen stuff on their radio and all, people are in their own bubbles now when they're driving, and nobody actually really pays attention to what goes on the road, because they know they can stop on the dime. They know if they have an accident, they've got airbags. They know nothing's going to happen. Their financed car is going to be destroyed, and they'll just go to the dealership and pick up a new one, and that's it. There's no
sad, really, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no real concern for having an accident anymore. Yeah. People just think, oh great, I'll get a claim and I'll go and buy something else. Whereas to those of us who are daily driving your classic car, it means that much more to you, that you don't want something to happen to it. So drive defensively and drive carefully, because safety doesn't exist, and they're not as easy to replace as you'd like to think. Another downfall, not as much anymore because they're going up in value, but 9 times out of 10, you ain't going to get back what you put in.
Oh no, not if you've put into it.
Yeah, if you've really put into it. Yeah. They are going up in value, but if you're putting into it and daily driving it, you're putting the miles up, and whilst people like me don't care about miles because it's how it's looked after, it's not how many miles it has, prospective buyers down the line probably won't like that. So if you're looking to daily drive one, don't look into it with the mindset of it being an investment.
No.
Because when you start daily driving it, it's no longer an investment, because the miles are going up, the value, it levels the value a bit more. Doesn't necessarily bring the value down a whole lot, but you know, if you're looking at this as an investment, don't daily drive it. I think that probably does us for the negative. Oh no, there's more negatives.
Go on, spill them.
Another thing as well, bear in mind, it's a 30-odd-year-old car. Things are going to break. My best advice is either replace everything that could possibly break and drive with peace of mind, knowing that it's going to take another 30 years for it to break anyway. Either do that or have a second car. There's a reason I have so many cars. I always have more than one car on the road at any given time, because you just don't know. It's 30 years old. Things are going to break. Things wear out. It doesn't mean it's unreliable. It's taken 30 years to break. That's not unreliable. Like, if you have a fridge for 30 years and it breaks tomorrow, you're not going to be like, this is horrible, I'm going to go on the internet and tell everybody not to buy these. You'd be thinking, Jesus, I got 30 years out of that. That's class.
Yeah.
So just bear that in mind. When things go wrong, they will go wrong. But, you know, it's not the end of the world, and parts are so easy got to these. But we'll get into that when we get on to the positives.
That is a positive.
Yeah. Trust me to end the negatives on the positive.
Brings us nicely into the positives.
Nice. I love being into the positives. I love being positive.
Nice.
Having a camera is great. Camera 1, camera 2. Camera 1, camera 2.
All right, so what's good about it then?
The opposite of everything I just said.
What is so great about Mark II Golfs?
Honestly, I don't know.
All right, let's say I'm thinking about buying a classic car, and I don't know anything about golfs. Convince me to buy one. Sell me this golf.
Send me this pen. Right, well, obviously with a classic Volkswagen, there's the lineage. I mean, they've gone back, they're one of the oldest, well actually they're not really, but they are a very old car brand. I was going to say they're one of the oldest out there, but roughly 1938. So
We'll not talk too much about who.
we don't need to know the hows, the whens, or the whys, and the who didn't get, and who actually built, and how much they got paid, or didn't. Maybe that's going too far into it as it is. But no, there's something about having a classic Volkswagen. It's kind of the air-cooled versus water-cooled thing is very much a thing with classic Volkswagens. Some people think it isn't, but when I say that, what I mean is the two types of people. In my experience, everybody with an air-cooled is usually very, very, very cool. Cool as in nice people, nice to be around, inviting, friendly. We went to so many air-cooled gatherings, even though we don't own one, just because they're so welcoming and nice and it's fun to be at.
We should get one.
We really, really should. Yes, I would love one. I've always wanted one. To put a Subaru engine in it. To on-water cool, or to on-air cool it. But yeah, so the water cool community, they're not going to like me saying this, but for the most part, they're all very nice, but there's a lot more dicks in the water cool community than there are in the air cool community, so...
I think you just get that with cars that go into the 80s and 90s because they're so available. I mean, you could get one.
They're like us for any corporate gigs.
You could pick one up for 200-300 quid not so long ago.
Yeah, not that long ago. I mean, I got my GTI for £580 in 2013. That was a GTI 3-door, like the most desirable one other than being a 16 valve. Like, so I can only imagine what a base spec one would have been like.
Cheap.
Yeah.
It just means that anybody can get one, and they don't have to think about it. Whereas with the air-cooled stuff, you do sort of think about it, and
you have to really want it.
I think a certain more sensible person maybe thinks about it and buys an air-cooled VW. Somebody who actually goes out wanting a classic rather than wanting a hot hatch to do fucking handbrake turns in the car park. You know?
Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, so the community in Volkswagens is great as a whole. They're brilliant. There's a lot of scene dickheads, but avoid them and you're fine. But that's one of the reasons there's a lot of classic cars out there, but there's not a lot of classic car communities. There are a lot of classic car groups that take all in, but model specific tends to be hit and miss. Like for Mercedes, for example, there's a lot of Mercedes clubs out there, but there's not a lot of 190E clubs.
No.
There's not a lot of 300SL clubs, but there are a ton of Volkswagen clubs. Like of every model and mark, and you name it. Case in point, I made one, the All Ireland Mk2 Golf Owners Club, and there's over 2,500 people in it, and it's the nicest club I've ever been in. Everybody wants to help each other out. There's no rows, and when there are, I kick them out. So
that's it.
But yeah, so that's one of the reasons I'd be into them. Number two is that with any classic car, things are going to go wrong, but you couldn't pick a better car to go wrong in than a Mark II Golf or a classic Volkswagen, because if you need it, you will be able to find it, and it's probably quite cheap. Parts availability on an old Volkswagen is second to none. People are jealous of us of how easily we can get parts from Mark II Golfs because nearly everything is new.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like, the one I'm building at the minute, the Marine one, 90% of that so far is new parts without having to go and spend $4 or $5 grand. Granted, I'm maybe about 1,500 quid into it, but that was me buying stuff I really didn't need and going new on it just because I could.
Yeah.
And for a low pay for it.
Thanks, Rishi.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, so parts availability is amazing, and technical help is second to none. If it's on any classic car, really, as you said in the Mercedes video, if there's something wrong with it, it's probably happened to somebody before, and somebody has asked about it, and somebody has had to fix it.
Yeah.
So the help you can get out there is amazing. Now, there's one thing that I like. I don't like to let on that I like, but if my girlfriend's watching this, she's going to say, you absolutely love that, shut up. Is when you're driving down the street in a Mk2 Golf, the amount of heads that turn and just look at it.
I think everybody likes that, really.
Yeah.
You wouldn't drive one of these cars if you didn't like that.
No.
You wouldn't drive an old car if you didn't like that.
Yeah, you just buy something that blends in. But I think I drive them for me. I don't drive them for the attention or anything like that, because I've always liked them, because my brother had one when I was a kid and I loved it. So I have them for me, but you know, people liking them is a nice bonus. And a lot of people like the Mk2 Golf. There's very few people who don't actually like the Mk2 Golf. Well, a better way to say that would be there's not very many people who have a bad thing or a bad opinion of the Mk2 Golf.
Yes.
Just in general, maybe some people had a lemon, but for the most part, everybody knows they're a good, solid German car.
Yeah.
They were the start of classic cars becoming more modern. You can hop into that. You don't need to worry about a choke or other classic car things.
Magneto.
Yeah. Or worrying about points or anything. Although there probably are points, I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff you don't need to worry about with a Mk2 Golf compared to an older car. And when you buy a Mk2 Golf, you've got the likes of your radio and a cigarette lighter and a good heater and all of the things that just didn't really come on the likes of old British stuff, or was an extra that you had to pay more for.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, cigarette lighter was an absolute extra in the Mk2 Golf as well. Yeah, my maroon one didn't come with one and didn't come with a radio. It was really poverty spec.
That's incredible that whoever bought that didn't smoke enough to think that he wanted one.
Yeah, old Fermanagh farmer with my maroon Golf. He thought, I'll spend more on the diesel engine, but that is it. I want the cheapest colour, I want the cheapest interior, I want no extras whatsoever. That's what he went for. But anyway, so yeah, reasons I'd go for Mk2 Golf is they're probably the easiest classic to own.
Yeah.
They don't break that often, being real. I know everybody thinks mine break all the time, but when you think about the amount of miles that I do in classic cars, I did Domino's deliveries in Mk2 Golfs and everything. Like,
Yeah.
no classic car really does the miles that I put on one. So the fact that they've only broken as much as they have with my very, very cheap or free second-hand parts, that I've learned my lesson, I don't do that. It's a false economy. Ever since I've started just putting new parts on them, they haven't really broke down on me. So like, they are a good, dependable, cool-looking, supported classic car.
Yeah.
They're the Fisher-Price classic car. No, that's an MGB.
That is an MGB or an MG
Ford.
Metro or
Or Metro. Or an XJ40 Jag, apparently. If you have delusions of grandeur.
Terrible, terrible cars.
Terrible. Anyway.
What's fuel economy like? In these days of
In these trying times.
In these trying times of £2 a litre petrol and diesel.
Yeah. It's woeful.
Come back to us in a couple of months' time and see what it's like then.
Yeah, people are going to watch this video years from now and laugh and be like, remember petrol? Like those video if you remember petrol. So, fuel economy on the Golfs. Now, I have had every type of diesel engine that could be in a Mk2 Golf, believe it or not. Other than a PD, I suppose, but I'll get there eventually. And as for petrols, I have only had a GTI on the road, so I can only talk for the GTI. Now, my GTI, questionably running properly, who knows? But my GTI, on average, was getting about 40 miles per gallon.
Which is really good.
Very good for a 1.8, 112 horsepower with a full stainless exhaust, being driven by a teenager who thought he was a rally driver. 40 miles per gallon is not bad. That's more than you're getting out of your Mercs.
Oh yeah, loads more.
Now, obviously, they're not a fair car to compare, but that's what we have.
Yeah.
My MX-5 was probably getting just under that, so you know, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
It's the economy of a larger engine being in a smaller car. It's not working that hard. It's not under strain, so it's not drinking juice. If you drive it handy, you'll get about 40 to the gallon out of it, 40, 45. Now the diesels, on the other hand, they're just so good. The diesels, if you have a 1.6 straight diesel, which is a scorching 45 to 50 horsepower. Oh, would you quit? I got overtaken by a tractor once in my straight diesel. I wish that wasn't true. I genuinely did. They'll get about 60 to the gallon,
Which is excellent.
Is outstanding. The turbo diesel actually got a wee bit less, but not much. The 1.6 turbo diesel, it got me about 55 to the gallon. When we did the England road trip in the Blue Golf, when that was a 1.6 turbo diesel, we got about 55 to the gallon on that trip.
You counting the AA lorry miles as well there?
Yeah, we'll not talk about that. That was failure of cheap aftermarket parts, not the failure of the low mileage, 80,000 miles, 1.6 turbo diesel engine.
Best engine you ever had.
Honestly, it was.
Yeah.
It didn't deserve a shallow grave.
To get 55 with the turbo.
Yeah, 55 with the turbo. So that's a car that'll do 80 mile an hour. You know, with a 1.9 straight diesel, it'll get the same as the 1.6D. So it'll get about 65 with about 20 more horsepower. So it's more drivable and gets the same economy. So it's a good happy medium if you don't want the hassle of a turbo. I know some people don't want to bother with a turbo, like Dad with his T4. He doesn't want to put a turbo in that.
He's a man after my own heart.
Yeah, that thing needs a turbo. God knows it needs a turbo, but he won't do it because there's less to go wrong. And I can see that argument. It's never let him down. So if you are looking to stay straight diesel, good economy, buy a 1.9 straight diesel. Now, the best engine ever made, ever since the beginning of time.
1.9 TDI.
1.9 TDI. Yes, if you have a 1.9 TDI, an AHU from a Mark 3 Golf, a Passat, so on and so forth, an AHU or a 1Z, you will get, recently checked, 58.2 to the gallon.
Lovely stuff.
And that is a car that will do over 100 mile an hour on the motorway, no sweat. And you get 58.2 to the gallon, which I think is pretty impressive.
It is.
It's the best all-round possible engine for Mark 2 Golf, if it's doable. If you're looking economy, that is. Obviously, there's fucking 1.8Ts and VR6s and all the rest, but for me, the best all-round engine is a 1.9 TDI modified with a bit more power. Then you have GTI speed with diesel economy. Can't really beat that. So
it's nearly cheating.
It is nearly cheating. It's almost too good.
Yeah.
But another bonus to the Mark II Golf in these trying times, Conor. So trying.
I know, I'm trying.
It genuinely is, actually. We're so broke from fuel costs. That's why all our videos are now at home. We can't afford to go anywhere to record them. You can, and I'm yet to test it. I want to. I just can't find any anywhere. You can run it on vegetable oil. So if you can still manage to get vegetable oil somewhere cheap.
If you can find it. It's getting scarce now too, so.
Yeah, or if you can get used vegetable oil and distill it yourself.
Chip oil.
Yeah, basically all you do is just store it all in a big drum and eventually the sediment just all goes to the bottom and then just pour through a strainer. That's it. So if you can manage to get a local chippy to help you out, I'm yet to.
It's worth us doing a video on that for the channel actually, for find a local chippy that's friendly.
I'm still afraid to put chip oil into my Golf.
I would love to do it on the Mercedes 240 because I think it would be no problem.
You just think it would be no problem. I know that mine can run on it. I'm still afraid.
I'm pretty sure it says in the owner's manual for that thing that you can run it on.
And there's certain you've mentioned that
before, I think
actually.
it says you can. It's either that or it tells you how to mix kerosene to run on it. So
yeah. What the hell?
The 70s.
But anyway, we're probably getting a bit long here, so let's move on.
Right. You want to talk about rust? That would have been a negative.
Yeah. It's the negative I like to forget about.
Okay, then yeah. One last final point: rust, because MOTs are quite stringent.
Yeah. So, right. There's a saying with Mark II Golfs, and I have tried to stick by it, and judging by my collection, hasn't worked. Buy on bodywork. Whoa! Yes, buy on bodywork. Everything else can be fixed really easily, but bodywork is such a pain. And the thing is, there's so many good ones out there. There's so many Mark II Golfs for sale.
I would like fellas be looking big money for them, boy.
People model go for them Mark II Golfs, you know, them in the ground, boy.
That yoke's mint, so I need about 10 grand for that.
Oh my god, there's some selling for like 20 now. Like it's, but anyway, I'm not getting into that. Yeah, buy on bodywork because they do rust. They are rot boxes. Amazingly, my blue one hasn't really rotted that much, but the rest of them just rot out the arse. Like it's woeful. So more than anything, buy on bodywork and really give it a good look over. We're going to do a buyer's guide on them soon enough, so hopefully we can answer any questions you have about what to look for when buying one. So we'll not get into it now, otherwise there's no point. But God, give it a good look over before you go and buy it. And if you are going to daily drive one, get somebody who knows them to look at it for you, or to give you some advice on what to look at. The amount of people who've been going to buy them and have messaged me and saying, here, would you either come and look at this, or what should I look for? And it's great to see, because those people have then went on to buy actually very good cars.
Good.
But do not rush into one, whatever you do. I've done it enough times now where I don't care.
Yeah.
But if you're buying one to daily drive as a first classic,
Get a good one.
Get a good one.
Yeah.
And another thing as well, as you said, be prepared to learn. Things are going to break on them, and it might only be wee small jobs, but don't bother daily driving one if you are going to pay a mechanic to do everything.
Because you'll be second.
You will be second. There's some things that, yes, mechanics should be doing. Like, I don't like touching brakes still to this day. But if something breaks in the interior, or if you need to do a service,
Time and chain, time and belt.
Yeah, get someone to do the time and belt. But when it comes to just small repairs, be willing to learn to do it yourself. Word for word what he said, buy a £30 socket set and just give it a go. There's so many guides on YouTube and online on how to fix these cars, because so many people have owned them. And as a testament to it, like, I bought one for me and the girlfriend to teach her about working on cars and things, because she was showing an interest in it now, and I just thought the Mark II Golf is the perfect car to learn on. Parts are cheap, parts are simple to fit, you can't really go wrong. I would say, of any car to have as a daily driver or as a first classic, the Mark II Golf is probably the best one you could buy all round. They're cheap to get into, they're cheap to maintain, they're simple to fix, anybody can work on them, they get good economy, they look cool, they tick all of the boxes.
Yeah.
Just don't buy a heap of shit like I have so many times.
No sweat.
Yeah. So this is meant to be a quick video. I don't think it was actually that quick.
No.
It never is.
No.
Not with me. So hopefully you've learned a thing or two. Hopefully, if you're thinking of buying a Mark II Golf, let us know. If you have any questions, feel free to comment and ask them. We will more than happily respond and try and help somebody get the classic car they've always wanted. We will be doing a buyer's guide on the Mark II Golf very soon, because we can. I've been at Tomo.Pattison on Instagram, and you've been
At Hughes Corporation.
Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. Hopefully you've enjoyed looking at all of the models we have in our new background, because this is our new setup, so hopefully you've enjoyed it. And we'll see you in the next one. Good luck.
Good luck.